Hey, Nikki here with Beauty J'adore. So I am bringing you a welt pocket tutorial. Now, when it comes to sewing, you know, we all have the same sewing patterns to choose from. The way to make it uniquely yours is to, of course, get some really cool fabric, or also change some of the aspects of the pattern. And one is inserting welt pockets where just regular pockets would go. But I know, and a lot of people have told me, like, trying to sew a welt pocket is a bit challenging. So hopefully I made it pretty simple. So these are the welt pockets that you typically find on a jacket as the breast pocket, but you can also put these welt pockets, you just make them larger. You can put them on regular jackets. You can put them, instead of side seam pockets, you can do these cool side seam welt pockets, and it just really elevates your make. So hopefully this is as simple as I think it is. If you have any questions, let me know. Any comments, please feel free. Enjoy. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So this is what you're going to need. You're going to need the actual welt pocket here. You're going to need 2 pieces of interfacing. That's the exact same dimensions as your welt. This is the fabric that we're going to place the welt on. So this would be like the outside of your jacket. And this is basically the lining, the pocket, the little jacket that the welt is going to need. So you're going to need, of course, like a pen, maybe a marker, some way that you like to mark your fabric. I'm also going to grab a piece of chalk because we will need that. And your presser foot, your zipper presser foot. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and we're going to affix the interfacing onto the back of your welt piece, as well as on the back of your fabric. So you're going to put this wherever your actual welt is going to go. So if you're using a pattern especially, it's going to let you know where this particular welt pocket will sit. So you just want to make sure that you put this interfacing on that. If you're just kind of like free-handing it, just make sure wherever you want your welt pocket is where you're going to put this interfacing. So I'm going to go ahead and iron this. You want to make sure it's ironed on really well. Okay, so we have the interfacing attached. And now what we want to do is take the welt. We want to fold this with right sides together. Go ahead and stick a pin. And we want to do the same thing with the other side. And we want to sew this using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you want to do that on both sides. So we have both these sides done. I'm going to clip these off. This over. Now what we want to do is go ahead and clip the corners, and you want to do this because you want your welt pocket to be nice and crisp. So go ahead and clip it very close to the actual stitch. Go ahead and then just turn this. And I use a heavier interfacing just because I like for my welt pockets to like sit really nicely. And you can kind of stick something in there, turn it out. Looks really good. Now what we want to do is go ahead and press this. Okay, so we have the welt nicely pressed. It looks really good. We want to go ahead and we're going to turn this over. You can work on the right side of the fabric or the wrong side. I like to work on the wrong side. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of draw out the actual welt where it's going to sit inside of the fabric. So let's go ahead and measure this. So again, if you're working with an actual pattern, it's going to already have the markings. So you just need to transfer the markings from the pattern onto the actual fabric. So this is 5 7/16 of an inch. So what we want to do is draw 5 7/16 of an inch. One line. And then what you want to do is you want to measure down a 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch. And we want to connect these two. So this part is really important because you want to make sure these lines are completely in line right here. And then go down, measure down a 1/2 inch and do the same thing. And then go ahead and connect this. So this is 5 7/16 of an inch long and a 1/2 inch wide. Now what we want to do is we want to draw kind of like a little mark here, meeting it in the center, and then going out to this side. And you want to do the same thing on the other side. Over here, meeting in the center, and then going out to this side. And now what you want to do is this point here and this point here, you want to connect those 2 points. Just like so. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch. You're going to stitch starting at this point, go all the way around. You want to pivot without taking your needle out of the fabric, and you want to pivot here, go down here until they're all connected. Don't do anything in the middle, just on the outside. So one more thing before I do the stitching. This is a very important part. You need to make sure that you are starting and stopping at the exact same point across. Because if you don't, that welt pocket opening will be kind of wonky, and that will make you want to scrap it and completely do it over. So make sure you stop and start at the exact same point. So this is like even across. Okay, so now we have the outline stitched up. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut down this line. But what we're going to do is we're going to stop when we get to the points of these little angles right here. So you just go ahead and fold this like this. And then just kind of like clip into it a little. I'm gonna use these because they're smaller. And you're going to stop right at the tip of this. And do the same thing on the other side. So once you get here, you want to take your scissors, clip it right to the corner, making sure you get right before you actually clip into the stitch. You want to do that and make sure it hits the same place on both sides. Just like so. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and this portion here, we're going to fold this and we're going to press it. We're going to do it on both sides as well as press this over. Because what this essentially is going to be is our seam allowance for when we insert the welt pocket. So just go ahead and nicely press both of these out. Okay, so we have our welt opening pressed, and this is the right side of the fabric and this is the wrong side of the fabric. So what you want to do now is take your actual welt pocket, and it should fit right in this little space here. Now, if your welt, the opening, if it's too small, then you're going to go ahead and you'll take this out and you'll just increase the seam allowance, maybe just on one side, and then do the same process, kind of trim it down. So we're going to go ahead and fit that in. So if you fold this under, you have this part here. You're going to line this part up. And you make sure you saw that. When you flip it over, this was the little seam allowance that was left. We're going to take this seam allowance, match it up with the welt. We're going to go ahead and pin this. Okay, so once you have this pinned, you're going to go ahead and you're going to stitch this, and you're going to stitch it directly on top of that original stitch. Okay, so we have the welt sewn to this here seam, and when you flip it over, this is how the front will look and this is how the back will look. Now just go ahead and press this out nicely. Okay, so we have everything nicely pressed out. Now what we're going to do is attach the lining or the pocket bag to the actual welt portion and the pocket in the bag. So we're going to flip this over. And so the other seam that we didn't attach the welt to, we're going to kind of push this up a bit. We're going to take one side of the pocket bag and we're going to pin this. Now this seam allowance is going to be pretty small, so you want to make sure you have your presser foot on, your zipper presser foot, because it's going to be kind of tricky to catch just the pocket bag and this seam. So we're going to go ahead . Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to stitch, making sure you grab the fabric and the pocket lining as well. Okay, so we have the pocket bag attached to the bottom, and now what we want to do is flip this over grab the top that has the welt attached to it, and we want to go ahead and pin this. Now you're going to go ahead and you're going to stitch, reinforcing the edges. Okay, so we have the pocket bag stitched, and this is the wrong side. So if you kind of flip this over, you see how we have this stitched through all the pieces of fabric. And that's making sure the pocket bag, there's no like openings or anything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch the pocket bag closed. So what you want to do is kind of pull this over, and you have this little tab that's here that we cut that's on both sides. What you want to do is stitch across this tab from the bottom, and you're stitching this whole thing closed, making sure you double stitch, triple stitch across this little tab here, securing this entire side. You want to do that for both sides. Doing the same thing. And you're going to have to kind of go in there because this is a little piece. You want to make sure you grab this as you're stitching down. Okay, so we have the sides stitched up and the actual pocket bag stitched. Now the last part is you want to stitch as close to the edge as you can on both sides. As close to the edge. Okay, so we have the two sides stitched up. My stitching is a little wonky because I should have changed my needle because I didn't use a denim needle, and this is really thick. But it's a very nice pocket and pretty simple to do. So if you have any questions, any comments, please let me know. Happy sewing.